My name is Ralph Baumgartner. I'm privileged to serve here as pastor of Galilee Lutheran Church. And on behalf of this congregation, I welcome all of you to this public event.
So this evening, we hope, the organizers of this event, that whether you've made your mind up or not, that you carefully listen to both viewpoints. Shall the Minnesota Constitution be amended to require all voters to present valid photo identification to vote, and to require the state to provide free identification to eligible voters effective July 1, 2013.
Requiring a photo ID to vote in person is a common sense solution to a problem of illegal voting. It will help to deter and detect fraudulent voting and encourage increased participation. If you're eligible to vote and want to vote, you will be able to vote. The courts have determined also, and data is also available to show that fraud is historical fact, and research shows that it does not suppress voter turnout. Polls have overwhelmingly supported voter ID.
Protecting the vote is the argument that some of the proponents have made for this constitutional amendment. It won't protect the vote against people fraudulently voting when they're non-citizens. It doesn't say your felony status. You can commit a felony and have a driver's license. And so it's not going to stop that. And that, frankly, of the 10 cases that were voter fraud things in Minnesota in the last 2 election cycles, 8 of the 10 were felons voting. And in order to address that, we're going to require everybody to get driver's license or some other photo ID and pay all the costs. The estimates of cost are as much as $50 million, and it's going to deny people the right to vote.
This is not the end to everything. It's the beginning to bringing our system into compliance with the 21st century. There are cases of fraud in this state. 2004, 2008. 2008, we had 38,000 postal verification cards returned after people voted. Fraud is hard to detect and hard to prove in this state because we codify it. Vouching, the combination of the no ID and mail-in registration form and the vouching up to 15 people, that allows people to work the system.
There's no way you can show a photo ID, show your face in the photo ID thing if you're in Afghanistan, the election judge is here. You can't have out-of-town absentee voting. In a nursing home, the only way you could vote, if you didn't have your old driver's license because your kids took it away 10 years ago or whatever, if you don't have your old driver's license, you'd have to have somebody take you out of the nursing home, cables and everything else attached, bring you to voter registration place, a deputy registrar to get a photo ID. People aren't going to be able to vote.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Well, I must say that's just not true. The original legislation we had in 2011 allowed a variety of types of IDs, military IDs, driver's license with students that are here from out of state, tribal IDs, a variety of IDs. So the military can vote. To say that the military is not going to vote, be it the military personnel are not going to vote, is simply not correct. What the election judges can do, the nursing home has to call the county clerk. They will arrange a time for election judges to come out to the nursing home and to help register those people, as well as get their votes on the absentee ballot.
Yes, you could use military ID. Yes, you could use student ID, tribal ID, and other things in order to register to vote. But the photo ID requirement, in order to vote, I have a copy of the bill in front of me. To satisfy the photo identification requirement, a voter must present a valid form of one of the following: a driver's license, state ID card, or voter ID card issued under this that contains the voter's current address of residence. 7,000 replacement licenses given out by the state every week. If 1/4 of those are people who lost their license in the 2 or 3 weeks before the election, that's 3 or 4 or 5, 6,000 voters. They can't vote. And saying, oh, well, we have other ways, we have exceptions. You put this in the Constitution, you don't allow exceptions. And yes, you get a free photo ID if you're low income and can't afford it. But why do we want to make sure everybody has to get a $30 thing? And the birth certificate you need to prove it, that's an illegal poll tax. This will stop people from voting.
Well, there were a lot of pieces there to bite on, but I'll pass. Thank you, Senator Marty. But in short, None of what he says is correct. There are numerous close elections in this state, weak statutes, mobile society, up to 40 million people moving every year, and changing technology all increase the likelihood of illegal voting. Disenfranchisement does not happen. Several studies, University of Missouri, University of Nebraska, University of Delaware, have all shown that voter turnout is not suppressed by requiring photo ID to vote. Atlanta Journal-Constitution, they showed a 44% increase in black turnout, voter turnout, in the election cycle immediately following the law.
There's not a homeless person in the state that could have voted under the photo ID that they passed last year that the governor vetoed. Not one. So in a current address, you live at St. Stephen's Homeless Shelter 2 nights a month. You don't have a permanent address. They have the same constitutional right to vote that we have, but not one of them could vote under this.
We're now at the point in our first debate where we're going to entertain questions from the floor. I have the cards here that have been provided by our panel. How will deployed soldiers be able to vote if they can't flash their ID and face to get an absentee ballot at City Hall?
Yes, the 2011 bill, which Senator Marty he's missing some pieces to it because government-issued IDs were wide and varied and they could be accepted. Military voters will be able to vote, absolutely. The concern is absentee ballots. And the language in the constitutional amendment is enabling language, and then you develop the statutory language behind it. That's the way it works. That's the way most of the language in our statutes have been built. We had a lot of constitutional scholars look at this stuff. They went through 6, 7 committees, a lot of debate over a couple of years. So this will work. Military personnel can vote and will be able to vote. And anything to the contrary is simply not true.
That's for registering to vote. You can use any of those to register to vote, but you cannot cast a ballot. You cannot cast a ballot except for these 3 things right here. No military ID, no student ID, period. And the Supreme Court of Minnesota already ruled on this, and this is their language, quote, because all voters would present valid government-issued photographic identification or something that is, quote, virtually identical to such identification. The ballot question does not mislead voters. And there is no way any soldier in Afghanistan or Fort Dix or anywhere else could vote unless they're going to fly back to Minnesota to cast their ballot and then go back.
If a person voted illegally, submitting a false same-day registration form, how likely are they to get away with it?
The answer would be simply, you could be missing somebody, but we do have prosecutors who do prosecute these cases. And when that one group came out and said there were thousands of these things returned, they start tracking them down and they find out why. And yeah, the person, some cases moved since that time, but they prosecute. This is a 5-year felony.
But proving they knew they shouldn't have voted is very hard. We can adjust those statutes and take care of that. But it's very difficult to find, prevent, detect, and then prosecute these people because of the way our statutes are written.
Is this amendment being proposed to disenfranchise minorities and young voters of their voting rights?
The short answer is no. The experience in other states has shown greater participation among all voters, greater voter turnout, and in substantially greater minority turnout.
I don't know your statistic of 44% more African Americans voting in Georgia or wherever the year after this was implemented. It might have something to do, maybe President Obama was on the ballot that year and it's a presidential year and other things like that.
How does the current system adequately deter voter fraud?
Felony theft, like auto theft and so on, they're doing it so they get money out of it. What do you get out of being able to vote? One vote out of this?
To say there's no fraud is to simply deny the facts and the evidence from across the country and from courts everywhere.
How can you say for sure that voter turnout for eligible voters would not be lowered because of this?
This is in several states, through several courts, and they have simply not experienced the depressed turnout that people are concerned about.
Minnesota's voter turnout has been #1 in the nation for about 30 years. You will lose voters.
If you'd like to applaud at this point, it would be appropriate.